Hi everyone, my name is Kayla. Welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today I'm going to share with you my spoiler-free review for Memories of Blood and Shadow by Erin S. Jones. Now, I did receive an e-arc of this from the author in exchange for an honest review. I ended up loving this so much that I went ahead and purchased a paperback copy for my personal library. It was so good, and I will tell you why today. Now, this book did release on April 7th and is available for purchase if you are interested. Memories of Blood and Shadow is a self-published, Middle Eastern-inspired epic fantasy that just captures loss and perseverance beautifully. This story is told from the protagonist, which is Tavar Farwan, and it has a feeling of the storyteller recounting a tale to his audience. It begins with an older Tavar who is living a quiet life in the middle of nowhere, but is haunted by dark memories, and in the middle of the night, two travelers come knocking at his door in the middle of a storm. They say that they are seeking refuge, when in actuality they are seeking vengeance for an ill past. Tavar kills one and leaves the other bleeding on the floor. While the man is bleeding, Tavar agrees to share his story with him, the story of how a nomadic orphan set out to kill a god. The beginning of the book starts off with a bang, and the rest of the book does keep that pace throughout. Now, where I would usually read a few books at a time, I could not do that with Memories of Blood and Shadow. I could not put it down, and I do feel like it needed my complete attention just because there is so much to it. The recounts of Tavar's life begin from when he is a young boy into a young man, and this allows the reader to see Tavar as he grows and gets to experience everything that he went through from his perspective, the good, the bad, and how Tavar handles each situation that he's faced with. Tavar quickly became one of my favorite characters in fantasy. How he handles choices, his situations, and how he reacts to everything around him makes him feel real, and the author does a fantastic job at immersing you in his world. The side characters also have depth to them, and their reactions and how they interact with our main character, Tavar, feel genuine rather than just plot devices. We also get to see some LGBTQ plus representation, and while we do see a variety of different cultures throughout the book, we do spend a lot of time in a city called Al-Fara, which is led by a god. In Al-Fara, we get to see a variety of different people from around this world. It just adds diversity to the city, and we get to see how this impacts Tavar's development as he grows up. Editing Kayla here, I realized I forgot to mention that Al-Fara is a kingdom which tends to bully its neighboring towns or kingdoms, often sees itself as superior, its way of life better, and is seeking to gain more power and control in the world. Now, with this being said, it adds a lot of conflict for Tavar and his friends to navigate, as any form of disagreement with this is often considered traitorous and met with the severe punishment of death. Having to see them navigate these circumstances with the Al-Fara community, as they are not originally from there, just is done really well. It left me on the edge of my seat in some circumstances, and I think Erin did a really good job at navigating what happens when you don't agree with a very powerful person. All right. Back with the rest of the video. Clearly, I love the characters, but what about the world? With it being Middle Eastern inspired, this added a refreshing take on fantasy, as it is a different setting than we would typically see. The weapons, the armor, the homes, the lifestyle of the people that we see is all detailed. This gives a really clear picture of the world that the author has created. Now, I will say that the fantasy aspect of this is minimal, and while there are fantasy elements throughout the book, they're just not as dominant as some other series that I've read. Now, they are hinted to or seen occasionally, but this really worked well for the story and the characters that we see, because we are seeing this tale through a non-magical person. The story itself keeps you on your toes. We get to see loss, betrayal, rebellion, epic battle scenes. We also get some found family in this, and political intrigue. This is just filled with memorable moments and quotes. Here are some of my favorites. All times are dark. Everyone feels they live in the worst point of history. Believe me, it's always been this shit. Leave the world a better place than when you entered it. That's the job of any person alive. They don't go away, they live in you. Every time you close your eyes or have a moment of silence to yourself, it's like you are never alone. They're watching you, always watching, making sure that their loss wasn't for nothing. Only thing we can do is keep living and make sure we live a life worth dying for. The author's note at the end of this was also heartwarming. They wrote this in a very difficult time of their lives, and they took inspiration from the time that they spent in the Middle East. Aaron S. Jones has a skill for writing fully realized characters with a mix of a gripping, high-stakes story, memorable characters, as well as epic battle scenes. I highly recommend Memories of Blood and Shadow. There are heartwarming, heartbreaking moments in this. There is so much love that I have for Tavar's character. I personally found him inspiring, and maybe I just read this book at a time where I needed it, but honestly, it just deals with various aspects of our lives and how we handle situations in an inspiring way. I really think that people can take a lot from this book, even though it is a epic fantasy. I am really excited to see what happens in the sequel that Aaron is currently working on. I went ahead and purchased book 1 in the Broken Gods Trilogy, which was Flames of Rebellion by Aaron S. Jones. So he does have some other books prior to writing Memories of Blood and Shadow. I wanted to see what they're about. Not only that, prior to recording this video, Aaron had announced via his newsletter that this trilogy was actually getting a cover redesign for its second edition. I reached out to Aaron and asked if I could share the first one with you, which he had shared in the newsletter, and he actually agreed to let me share all 3 with you. So I'll post the first edition covers you can see over here, and the second edition redesigns over here. Guys, the redesigns look epic. Now, I do like the style of the first editions, but these second editions just jump out to you, similar to how the Memories of Blood and Shadow cover jumped out when I initially saw it. So a huge thank you to Aaron for providing an e-arc for this that started it all, as well as letting me share the cover redesigns with you guys. I am so excited to see what happens in Memories of Blood and Shadows sequel, along with the Broken Gods Trilogy. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and as always, take care of yourselves.